Hello, church. So here's our devotional for Friday, February 6th. Took me a minute to think about. Just had my eye doctor's appointment over at Eye Care of the Valley. I can still read with my eyes dilated, so we're going to try to go ahead and do that. And if anything goes catawampus, my apologies. But great thanks to the visual care professionals at Eye Care of the Valley for continuing my visual health and well-being. So a note on our New Interpreter's Bible, they actually have two biblical translations included in New Interpreters. Those are the New International Version and the New Revised Standard Version. If there's ever points of interest in difference between the translations, I might point some of those out. I'm going to continue our pattern from Psalms of focusing on the NRSV and comparing that with Eugene Peterson's The Message. But sometimes there's some neat nuances that comes up with that. There are a couple of pieces of commentary that I'll be utilizing today and introducing. And so we'll let you hear those as we go through. Today, we are going to be dividing Proverbs 5 into two portions. This will be following Eugene Peterson's approach to the text. I think it's a fairly natural break, and it is one that is acknowledged in the commentary in its titling. So we'll talk about that part. For our title for this portion, it's comments on, and it helps if I'm looking at the right thing. Sorry, that was 6. Proverbs 5, it actually goes 1 to 23. Adultery is folly, marriage as wisdom. What we're going to be focusing on and where Peterson does his break is on adultery as folly. And so it's going to be getting into these descriptions that you will be hearing shortly. My child, be attentive to my wisdom. Incline your ear to my understanding, so that you may hold on to prudence, and your lips may guard knowledge. For the lips of a loose woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps follow the path to Sheol. She does not keep straight to the path of life. Her ways wander, and she does not know it. And now, my child, listen to me, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, or you will give her your honor to others, and your years to the merciless. And strangers will take their fill of your wealth, and your labors will go to the house of an alien. And at the end of your life, you will groan when your flesh and body are consumed. And you say, oh, how I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers, or incline my ear to my instructors. Now I am at the point of utter ruin in the public assembly. So, and then a portion of commentary. And so it points out in the New Interpreters that the initial phrase shifts from speaking to the person to whom advice is being given to this character of this woman who is being named. In my thought process, this is a counterbalance to Lady Wisdom, and we're talking about more than some actual character within the story. We're talking about the choice of the way of life versus the way of sin and death. Within that context, you're also going to be hearing a portion on the nature of freedom, and then ultimately the limits of God's calling in that vast freedom that we have, and trying to walk the path of faithfulness and wisdom in this context in our days. To step beyond the boundaries of freedom set by God is to attempt the impossible. to live outside the very conditions that make life possible. In the end, humans can no more live outside God's moral order than can the proverbial fish out of water live outside God's biotic order. Outside the ordinances of God, we find not life, but ultimately death. Humans have little difficulty seeing this truth in the so-called natural world. We cannot leap off a building, flap our arms, and fly. If we eat poison, we get sick or die. But humans are more easily confused in the moral sphere because of the great freedom God has entrusted to us. Freedom to shape culture, language, art, and even created institutions as fundamental as marriage and family in a variety of ways. Nevertheless, a culture that thinks there are no limits to freedom finds itself in the out of bounds territory of death and chaos. Death is the ultimate limit to freedom. It drives us to accept reality and to find the good within its limits. It is this truth that Pharaoh was unwilling to learn when plague after plague confronted him. Schwenkfeld talks a fair bit about freedom and freedom of conscience. And I've actually been doing some work in a thesis by a Korean pastor named Young Ho Soo that I have been really intrigued with and gets into Schwenkfeld's concept of freedom. The caveat with that is, as Schwenkfeld was looking out at the era of the Reformation, what he saw was a lot of people who were supposed to have been reformed and transformed by the Spirit of God, and they were largely behaving in the same way as they were before the Reformation. And in the case of the church as an institution, that the church was actually becoming this thing of political power and coercion and influence. So that concept of the freedom that we have, but also defining those limits for us in the midst of that freedom, is an important one and challenge for us as we seek to walk the way of faithful living. So here's Peterson and his opening portion from Proverbs 5, which he entitles Nothing But Sin and Bones. Not skin and bones, sin and bones. Clever, clever Peterson from the Message. Dear friend, pay close attention to this, my wisdom. Listen very closely to the way I see it. Then you'll acquire a taste for good sense. What I tell you will keep you out of trouble. The lips of a seductive woman are also sweet. Her soft words are also smooth. But it won't be long before she's gravel in your mouth, a pain in your gut, a wound in your heart. She's dancing down the primrose path to death. She's headed straight for hell and taking you with her. She hasn't a clue about real life, about who she is or where she's going. So, my friend, listen closely. Don't treat my words casually. Keep your distance from such a woman. Absolutely stay out of her neighborhood. You don't want to squander your wonderful life, to waste your precious life among the hard-hearted. Why should you allow strangers to take advantage of you? Why be exploited by those who care nothing for you? You don't want to end your life full of regrets, nothing but sin and bones, saying, oh, why didn't I do what they told me? Why did I reject a disciplined life? Why didn't I listen to my mentors or take my teachers seriously? My life is ruined. I haven't one blessed thing to show for my life. Some very good questions for us. Why didn't I do what they told me? Why did I reject a disciplined life? Why didn't I listen to my mentors or take my teachers seriously? A reminder, Peterson refers to Proverbs as a manual for living, and wish you blessings as you continue on this journey of faithfully living in Jesus Christ. See you later.